Hey guys, it's Rusty Nelson, your college art professor, and today we're doing a watercolor landscape with an old barn. Haven't done one of those in a while. I thought it was time. It's autumn, it feels fall, and this is a fall scene that we're going to be working on. I thought it would be a fun piece. I'm going to be working with this in gouache. I've already got it sketched up on my watercolor paper, so let's get started. All right, so this is my setup. I'm working on a larger sheet of paper, 11 by 14 Arches 300-pound paper. That's my reference up at the top, and I'm working with my gouache palette right here. So this should be fun. Shouldn't, in theory, take very long, and we'll get going. I'm going to get started with the sky right up in here. You can see we got a kind of a nice blue sky, leads over to a cloud bank right in here. So I'm just going to let the colors do what they do when you're painting clouds and kind of just run with it and see how it goes. So I'm going to start out with some ultramarine. I'm going to get a pretty good saturation dab of them. I'm going to mix a little cerulean blue into it. I think that's cobalt blue, sorry. There we go. And there's some phthalo. All right, so we got a nice big puddle. I got a nice big brush, big flat brush here. There's a cerulean right there. Darker up in this corner leading over to the clouds, and then it thins down. There's actually another little cloud bank right in here as well. So, and a lot of times, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to start out with the blues. You can also lay in some grays for the clouds first, but I think I'll just go ass backwards and see if we can pull it off. All right, so, and we'll just drop it in here. All right. Just pull it in, and then we'll just start pulling it down and adding water into it, thin it out. I'm going to switch over to a slightly smaller flat. All right, and we'll just start pulling and softening. There we go. Just keep pulling it out. Okay. There we go. Just pull it down. Let that sky kind of do its thing. As it comes down, I'm going to get a little bit more right in through here. I'm going to catch that cloud bank right down here. And then we'll soften that out right in through here. Pull it over to my edge. There we go. This is that Arches paper, so it's a nice, very forgiving paper. So just make that nice, soft cloud bank transition right there. A little more right in here. Pull it right down to the ground. Cool. Okay. All right, so we have some nice, fluffy looking clouds in the cloud bank right there. And I'm just going to kind of pull some of that over into this area. I'll soften that up, get a little more maybe right in there. There we go. I'll soften that out a little bit better. There we go. All right, I'm starting to overwork it. You got to be really delicate with those clouds. You can overwork them very easily. And I just did that there to eliminate that straight edge. All right, so there's a little harsh line right down here. All right, and now I'm going to get a little bit of the Payne's gray in here, or a very light bluish gray, maybe with just a smidge of a warm color. There we go. So we got a neutral gray right in here, and we're just going to essentially do a similar thing over here. So get some of that grays happening. We'll soften it out, feather it out a little bit, pull it down, pull it in. There we go. We got some darks right down in here. I'll throw that over here like that. And we had some grays right in through here as well. So there we go. All right, so I got a little bit of a bloom happening there that I could mess with it. I'm just going to live with it. So, all right, so we got a pretty good looking sky right now. I could get just a little more saturated color. It's awfully wet. I might just let it dry. I might glaze in some colors up there a little bit later. But it's not a bad looking sky right now. But as we're in here, I'm going to go ahead. This whole roof has kind of got this steel gray, so I'm going to go back and grab some of that gray. And I'm just going to kind of throw some of that up in here. I'm going to get a little more of the yellow ochre. Warm it up a little bit, and I'll throw some of that in there. All right, cool. Get a little dab more. Get some, there we go. We'll just throw that right in here on the roof, just like that. I see this whole side over here. I'm going to get a little more of a grayish, a little more blue than gray on this one. And we'll just come in and paint in an overall tone with that. There we go. Make an irregular edge. There we go. That's kind of fun. I just I'm going to lift out that blue in that spot right here. I want this to be a little lighter right there, so I'm going to lift it out. There we go. All right. And as that's drying, I'm going to get some sienna. Actually, I'm going to get a little of this raw umber first. And I'm going to lay down a pretty healthy chunk of it right up on this. This has an underpainting. All right. Cool. That looks like fun. And a very faint, I'm going to get just a slight mixture. There's not much pigment here. So just very light colors right there. All right. And as that's drying, I'm going to come in. Actually, I'm going to grab a little bit of that blue again. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw some of it down in here on this shadow. There we go. Okay. Just to have some coolness for when we come in, paint a little more on that. Just want a little bit of blue right there. And then I'm going to come over here. Feels like it's dried a bit. I'm going to throw a little bit of it on that tree line right there. On that bush right there. Cool. All right. See a little bit. I'm going to throw a little more right in through here. There we go. All right. And now I'm going to get up here. I'm going to be predominantly yellow ochres up here. Maybe just a smidge of green. There we go. So I'm going to come right in on this edge right here. It's pretty thin. Okay. That's pretty cool. Okay. And now I'm going to get a little more of this. That looks like a burnt sienna. Get a little more color to it, a little more saturation to it. And I'm going to get a little more green over here. Get some of this green. There we go. Let's get some of that. There we go. All right, so I'm going to come in right in here. Okay. That's fun. I'm going to keep it right up there. That green's going to stay right on this, right up here. I'll pop more into it as I get into stage 3. So this is just kind of all under blocking, under colors, under painting. Get some more of that sienna. Okay. Thickening it up a little more. All right. And we'll just come in and get a little umbers too. It's all nice and wet, so everything's kind of flowing nicely. Some nice color interaction. We'll throw a little more of that blue in here. There we go. All right, that's looking pretty good. A little more there on that tree line in this little tree. Cool. All right. That's looking pretty cool. There's a little more of that intense color right in here. Try to get the balance right. All right, cool. All right, so we've color blocked that real quick. It needs to dry for a few minutes and then we'll come back in and we'll start adding a little more structure and saturation to the various parts, be it the foreground, middle ground, or the background, and we'll see where it goes from there. So hang on, let's let it dry. All right, this is drying right in through here, so it's not quite dry yet, but I can go ahead and start layering in some additional colors on the front of this barn. And I think I need to get a bit more of a darker brown with just a smidge of some red blues over here. I'll keep that handy right there. All right. So we have a nice dark gray. And I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to scrub in some of that tone. All right. So right up in through here. I'm trying to keep it kind of crunchy, so we get a good sense of textures. It needs a little more complexities in certain areas. So, and as that's wet, I can kind of come in and intensify certain areas. It's going to be nice and soft, not overly stiff. Come in along this bottom edge right here. All right. Just dab it in. I'm going to grab my smaller brush, grab the same color, and I'm just going to hit just a bit of it over here. It's still wet right there. I just smeared that a little bit. I can deal with that later, so I got to keep my hands out of the paint that's drying. There we go. All right, and I'll come back over to my blue, and I'm going to get a little more of it right up in here. Throw some crunch in that. And I can even, if it's too crunchy, I can soften it out a little bit. There we go. That's nice. And I'm going to get, that's predominantly a blue over here, but I'm going to do the same thing right in here. I'm just going to pop in some of the initial shadow lines. And just build a little more color variation. All right, cool. How's that drying? It's still drying. Like I said, I got a little spot right there where I set my hand in it. All right. And let's look here. I want to go ahead and get a little more of that burnt umber, a little more ultramarine for a nicer, darker, thicker color. And I'm going to come after, I'm going to start building some structure, a little more contrast, add that definition in there. There we go. That's the shadow line right under the eave right there. I'm going to soften it out a little bit. All right, cool. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get a little bit of that right up there on the roof. Okay, get a little bit over here as well. There we go. And there's just a bit over here as well. All right, get a little more of that. I'm running out. It's getting too thin. Again, that burnt umber and ultramarine makes a great contrast color. All right, and Okay. Got a nice doorway right there. Let's get that door in there. Okay, so already we're starting to get some pretty cool effects happening in here with just a little bit of burnt umber and ultramarine. All right, let's get this door right. Oh, that's not a door. That is a post or something in the foreground, but we got to get some of this density right in here. And there's a very faint shadow line, but that's not a dark line. So dark line. All right, I can set my hand on that again, finally. It's still a little damp. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on this eave right here. It'll be a little crunchy. All the shingles are falling off. There we go. And there's a nice shadow line. Actually, there's a missing board right up here. There we go. I'm just painting shadows at this point. Needs to be a little thicker. There we go. All right. So all right, cool. And let's see here. I'm going to write in here and get more of those shadow lines coming across. We got the different tiers of boards right in through here. All right. And that's probably about the darkest of everything happening here. I'm going to throw a good solid line right there. Okay. And then I can come back over and we'll just start striping in more board textures, different colors. It's darker up here. A few streaks over there. It's dark back over here again. All the way down. Get a little more of that burnt umber. That must be sepia. Cool. All right, and we'll throw a few boards over here. And we'll even do some of it over here on the shadow side where it's a little cooler. Down there by the ground. Over on that one right there. And I even see some of that rust happening right there on the top. Okay. All right, that's looking pretty cool. Get a little more. All right, I'm going to get a little more orange here. And again, I'm doing this just for a little more color complexity. More density. And I'm going to get a little phthalo blue here. A little more. There we go. That's better. Okay. Throw a little more blues on the roof. Get a little more blues over here on the barn side. I'm going to throw a lot of it right on that edge, right on that corner. And we'll pull some of it down here. And I'm even going to throw, and it's going to make a little more of a neutral right there. That's all right. Still predominantly brown. Throw some of it right up here. And right in there. All right, so the barn's looking pretty good. So I need to work now. I'm going to get a little bit bigger brush. I want to get a little more of a green right in here. More of that orange. And a little more of that. Here we go. All right, so I got a good range of colors right here. So I'm going to just kick up the contrast right up in through here. I'm going to do a little dry brush, make an irregular edge right in through there. Okay, gets a little thicker right in through here. Trying to break the edge of it up a little bit. All right, so right over to here, get a little darker. Right in there, a little more contrast. Right on the edge, right on the horizon line, right there. All right, and bigger brush yet. And then I'm going to go more orange, a little more orange. There we go. Come in here again. We'll just scrub in a little more texture. A little more saturation here. more color along with that dry brush. Creates a nice irregular texture. Plus the directional marks. We get those nice peekaboos right in there. All right, so, and I'm going to go now, I'm going to get a little more of that blue right there. There we go. Same drill, we'll just throw it right in through here. Right. I'm just going to take and soften a little of this out. It's really dark right through there. It also transitions to more of a brown as it comes down off of that hill. So we'll throw a little more of that in there. Soften it out if necessary. Just trying to get a nice texture going. All right, and I'm going to get a little more greenish brown right down in here. All right. That's working nicely. Okay. We have some nice things happening. That paper stays damp for a while, so if it looks a little too sharp in spots, you can come in, dab it out. All right, I see I'm going to do a little more work. I'm going to get a little more brown, burnt sienna, a little more of that blue right there. There we go. All right, I'm just going to throw a little more modeling in on that tree right there. Right along the edge. And I'm going to make that some little gray, a little more brown right in there. There we go. Cool. All right, cool. All right, and in preparation in painting the tree, look at that dribble. Uh-oh. I'm going to lift him out. There it is. We'll just lift him out. Look at that. All right. All right. So now we're going to come in and prep some of the tree. And I need a very faint, gnarly looking green, and this green right here is perfect for that. And I'm going to load and unload my brush, and I'm just going to come in and kind of get the foliage kind of happening there. I want a lot of speckle to it, and if it's too harsh, I'm just going to come in and I'll just soften it out a little bit. Okay, we can come back over. And this is just a kind of a visual pattern, irregular pattern. Needs to happen right down in here, right along the ground. Your first inclination when you're first doing landscapes and trees is to paint every freaking leaf. And that's not what you do. All right. I'm going to come over. I'm going to throw a few things over here as well. And I'm just squishing, just dabbing and squishing here. And that'll be just something I can use when the time is right. So, oh, also, as you're doing this, you know, there's all sorts of, you could be dropping in some splatters of various colors. If they're too harsh, come in and just soften them up. Dab them around. There we go. That one I like. There we go. We'll get some right in here. Oh yeah. All right, so now I am going to try paint some tree limbs. Get some green. All right. Let that go for a second. That all needs to dry. Got my other brush right here. And we'll see if we can get this to work. All right. I think I need the little, I think I need my dagger. Yeah, that works. All right, switch over for the denser stuff. Get it right down here. All right, we'll pull this one over. Okay. All right, switching over to my dagger again. I'm going to get these little loftier limbs in here. It's all about being irregular. Try to keep it angular. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Throw a few more up here. Got to do some cross shapes and things like that. All right, I'm going to get a little darker color right here. Just going to fill this in. And I'm going to scrub a little bit darker shadow line underneath here. There we go. That is cool. I need to get a little more right there. Right on that edge. There we go. All right, cool. Need a little more contrast on a few. All right. And I see a couple more things. Oops. There we go. All right, I'm gonna throw a couple right across the way there. I'm gonna thicken them up down here. There we go. That's reading pretty good. All right, so do a few of them over here. Right on that, right there. Actually need my thinner one. There we go. I'm going to get a little more of a definition right there. Okay. Throw another little bigger brush. Right down in here. Right here is be a good spot. And maybe one right in through here. There we go. And now I'm going to get a little more green, a little more yellow ochre. All right. And I'm going to pop in a little denser foliage now. Just scrubbing it in. This is where it can have all sorts of things go wrong. So you just kind of have to embrace the chaos. And just try to get an irregular pattern going. All right. And you might even throw just a little bit of it over here. Yeah. All right, that's a landscape of an old barn. Has a nice cloudscape in it as well, and with a lot of grass features. So, hey, I hope you got some value out of this video. And if you did, please give me that like and subscribe and share this out to any friends, relatives, or neighbors you know who might want to get started doing something creative. We can help them out on this channel. Head into my video description. I have some free downloads on my website. Links are in the description for figure drawing, several figure drawing resources, and I have affiliate links out there for supplies and tools. So if you buy anything from Amazon, I'll get a small commission. Thank you for supporting the channel in that way. Head into Patreon if you think I'm doing anything on this channel with these free tutorials that will be worth a $5 a month membership. That is greatly appreciated. And I have 2 digital products out on Gumroad, 15-week beginner to intermediate calendar of projects and a syllabus. So get out there and buy those if you're wanting to go from beginner to intermediate. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.